Jackie Castelli, my friend, thank you so much for hopping on and doing this with me. Girlfriend, you have had a year, and there are a lot of people out there who have had a year. Everything they thought they had planned and how life was rolling to everything getting disrupted or feeling like life just shut down. You yourself, I mean, when all this started for you over 12 months ago, you now have had a shift into living alone. You've been through a divorce. You have had your world kind of shrunk down to just you and trying to figure out what's next in the middle of when things are all shut down. What has that been like, feeling like, wow, I'm really stuck in a fresh way, but I'm stuck?
Yeah. I love, I'm laughing when you asked that, because at the beginning I was like, let me out of my cage, and I was by myself and I was ready for a new chapter and a new season, and just kind of excited to see what the Lord had for me. And then COVID happened, and it was, oh, you're not going to travel half of the time that you normally do for work. Not only are you not going to do that, your entire industry is going to shut down. It is most likely going to be the last, I'm part of the entertainment industry. So concerts are probably going to be the last thing that revives. You're not going to be able to go to church. You're not going to be able to see your people. So you're kind of back in your cage. So God was kind of talking through, hey, I'm going to teach you what freedom looks like by yourself and with me.
Ooh.
And I thought freedom was going to be just out in the world and meeting new people and just getting kind of a new breath of life and a rejuvenation of life. And I had to do that within the walls of my 800 square foot apartment.
Yeah. Which, I think would make a lot of people feel stuck, particularly the timing of all this, because you were looking into launching into a new life. I know people who had some really beautiful plans last year. They were starting a new business. They were launching a new ministry. They were going to finally do the thing or take the dream trip or get married and the big wedding they've been waiting for. And all of that came crashing down. And so how do you get unstuck when this is going to sound interesting, but when you thought you were unstuck, when you thought you were already getting unstuck from some patterns, and then you find yourself stuck in something not of your own making, not because of your decisions, not because you weren't willing to take the risk, how did you figure out how to get unstuck in the middle of all that?
Yeah, I had to relinquish control of what I thought was my next right thing. And I had to look literally in front of me, which most of the time is a mirror, and most of the time is no one around you. So you're having to look at yourself. And I had to work on what the only thing that I can control was inward. And I had to think through kind of, all right, mind, body, heart, and soul, where I had to do an inventory check. And I felt like I was in a season where emotionally and spiritually and mentally, there was just really beautiful movement in mine and my story with Jesus. But my unstuck was, where are the areas that I had to show up for myself to be the healthiest version of myself, to feel like I can feel freedom even in a pandemic. Right. And so last year for me was my physical health. Ended up losing 30 pounds, and it was just, and that it wasn't easy. I threw tantrums, cheated diets, like cried my way out of showing up with my trainer, had so many tantrums of how do I get out of this? And I read something that completely just convicted me, where, all right, you feel a certain way and you want a certain life. Well, you have to get from point A to point B, and what is going to be kind of your mantra. And I read this thing, and it said, there are only two pains in this life, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And I had lived so much pain of regret that out of boredom and desperation and just really wanting immediate movement in my life, in a place that I couldn't create immediate movement in my life, it was showing up for my physical health. And so I chose the pain of discipline. And I realized that getting unstuck and getting kind of through that, it wasn't that I was seeing the fruit right away. It was, I'm so tired and I'm lonely and I'm bored and I'm sad and I miss my friends and I miss half of my job and I hate what's going on, but I'm going to show up. And and that started the ripple effect of me getting unstuck in a place that I felt I had a cage life. And it showed me, instead of listing out all of the things of what I wanted to do, I just started with what was in front of me every day. And whether, again, it was loving my family or loving myself or reaching out to that friend, it was what's right in front of me and what is mine to do now. And most of that was physical health in the unstuck department. But that was how I had to release control, is I had to keep looking. And it's every day. It's that's every the day. Annoying part. You get so excited and motivated about, I did this, and then you did it and it feels great, and we have to keep doing it.
You have to do it again the next day and the next and the next. Yeah. I know. It's still something, Jackie, honestly, that surprises me. I mean, I get the house clean, and would you believe it? It needs it the next day too. I get the laundry finished, and before I can even get the final piece into the drawer, there's more laundry. It probably was one of the most stunning things to me of all about adulthood, because I thought when we were going to be adulting, we were going to like pull into this space that was like consistent and done, and like you check off the list and the list stays done. And instead, adulting is every day. Adulting is every day. So
you don't get a break.
No, you don't. And that's not a bad thing. I think once we lean into that and understand that that's true, instead of pushing against it, there is a release that comes and a freedom that comes. You're so wise, you're so well read, and you and I have talked about the quote that you read from Experiencing God on the difference between, and I want people to hear this, the difference between planning and preparation, how they're two different things, and we get them confused, and we sometimes value planning over preparation. Unpack what that quote has meant in your life.
Yeah, so I read that book in probably, I think, 2014, and in the last almost 7 years, I have switched industries. I have just switched, again, relationships, and I have just really had this disruption of, I thought I was going to be married and kids, and I used to be a wedding planner, and so I was pretty involved in that industry, and thought my career was picked out, and I thought it was something that what my heart loved to do on the side with nonprofits and serving. I thought that was just kind of a hobby. And one of the things that I loved about that book is it just disrupted how I thought my life was going to go, not from a place of disappointment, but just from a place of release. And it encouraged me of, instead of focusing on the plan, just focus on the preparation. Mm-hmm. What makes you want to get so excited, or what gets you excited to wake up in the morning? What is your purpose? What is your assignment? I think that is a big deal too, is there is a difference between assignments and calling. Mm-hmm. And what I loved is, instead of feeling that overwhelming sense of I need to figure out what God's plan is for me, I'm going to dream, and I'm going to be aware of what my strengths are. I'm going to be aware of what my weaknesses are. I'm going to do it with humility, but I'm just going to prep for the life that I want and the life that I hope and desire that God has for me, open-handedly, and ready to pivot when he has different plans for me. So just really thinking, a lot of people think, well, the plan is the end goal, so the prep is just inevitable. Mm-hmm. Well, you don't get to the plan unless you're prepping, and that plan can change.
Right.
So really celebrating and showing up and disciplining yourself in the preparation so you can walk in freedom to really, truly believing, God, whatever your will is for me, I'll do it.
Right. I love that distinction, because you're so right. So often I have really congratulated myself and patted myself on the back for all kinds of audacious, amazing plans. But the plan was actually the thing that almost could become an idol, instead of really focusing on how I was being prepared for whatever might come. So I think that's so beautiful. You talked about some of the inward things that you walked through in this time of becoming unstuck again, in the middle of what a lot of people has felt like has been a very stuck season for all of us. Yeah. Now, you talked about the inward things. What are some of the outward things that also helped facilitate this sense of continuing to grow and develop and prepare in a year where, let's face it, a lot of us, myself included, you lost 30 pounds. I found it. We've spent a lot of time snuggled up to Netflix and justifying a whole lot of stuff going, well,
I've said that I've completed the streaming.
Yeah.
That's my job. Like, I've completed all streaming.
Yeah, exactly. Completed the entire collection of streaming everywhere. So what's something outward that you have found has been really helpful in propelling this sense of, yes, we want to do the introspection, but another part of being really healthy is remembering that it's not all about us. I mean, there's a whole big world out there that we still have value to give to, even when it has to look a little different than maybe what our usual preferences are.
Yeah. So I'm thinking when you're saying the word outward, I'm thinking of, God calls us to love others. That is the second most important thing that we are supposed to do on this earth. We are built for relationships. We're built for connection, and we are built for community. And when you can't necessarily find that in your household or find that within your current circumstances, for me, I was telling you earlier, so I'm a 2 on the Enneagram. So I want to get my hands dirty, and I want to jump in, and I want to serve, and I want to help. And I can't do that right now. There's ways that we can get creative, whether it's with our church or in our neighborhood or with our neighbors or with our friends and family, and figuring out how can we love them outward. But sometimes with right now, for me in those actual circumstances, I go to a very large church, so it's not very responsible of me to just kind of dive into that community right now. Just, being around a bunch of people. I have a lot of high risk, health high risk in my family and in my friend group, that just jumping in and loving them is not a responsible thing for me to do. And then I'm by myself. So loving my household, yes, I'm loving myself, but there's not an outward.
Right.
So when I'm in a funk and when I want to get unstuck and when I just want to create movement in my life, to me, it's getting creative and serving. And that's probably one of my favorite things about what I get to do in my job is I get to see how loving others and serving others can easily be done by a click of a button right now. And that's such an unconventional way of saying you're making a difference. But with working with World Vision, I get to see the ripple effect of what one person's yes and one person's kind of loving someone outward by, for example, if I'm loving outward and I decide that my one thing to do that is, well, I can't serve, so I'm going to give. Well, where am I going to give? Okay, I have an opportunity to sponsor a child with World Vision. Okay, I'm going to go do that. And by me just doing that, I just gave somebody the tools and the resources and the opportunity to have hope in a way that they probably didn't feel that, especially in a pandemic. I mean, right now our biggest struggle is we work ourselves out of a job out in the field, right? Mm-hmm. We go in there with the goal of moving out. We create a sustainable way for them to be the community and empower that community that they were destined to be. And we come alongside them figuring out what that looks like. But to backtrack that a little bit, sometimes it feels like, well, how am I supposed to make that difference? Or how am I supposed to be able to do that? And I'm getting kind of choked up on my words because I just think that the beauty of it is by saying yes in the click of a button, that ripple effect. By me doing that, the way that our community model works, I just changed 5 kids' lives. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that I single-handedly did that, but I just said yes to a ripple effect of what that community is already investing in those kids' life. And I just joined forces with them by saying yes.
Yeah.
And by giving $39 a month. And some people think I don't know how to do that myself. I'm not asking you to do that yourself. I'm just asking you to see if you want to love outwardly, because right now you don't want to live inwardly.
Mm-hmm.
You can't handle it anymore, and you can't handle doing one more nice thing for somebody else. Well, if you need immediate movement, and if you want that one thing, that immediate movement, you just change someone's life.
Yeah. Yeah. A simple thing. And I think sometimes if it doesn't feel complex, or it doesn't feel like, well, I went and invested an entire Saturday morning doing whatever the thing is, which is awesome and beautiful, but sometimes I think we devalue it in terms of what it really means. But when you think forward, that sometimes it is the simplest thing. It's the simplest kind hello to someone. It's the simplest paying for the coffee behind you in the car. It's the simplest click of a button to sponsor a kid. Just because we don't always get to see the effect right in front of us, in some ways, I think it can almost be a little bit more selfless in some ways to do something that you don't always get to experience for yourself, but know is making a difference on down the line. Well, Jackie, you're amazing. We could talk all afternoon, but thank you so much for these insights on what you've been doing in a season of feeling stuck, in terms of getting unstuck, both in the inward, the things you focused on, and the outward and serving others through World Vision. You're just a treasure. Thanks so much for being with me.
Thanks, Julie. It's so great to be with you. I appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Okay.